Hey everyone, my name is Dillon Gonzalez. I'm the editorial director of GeekVibesNation.com and also a co-host of the Home Dance Film Festival podcast. And welcome to a brand new episode of No Streaming Required, your weekly deep dive into all the latest and greatest in the world of physical media. Welcome back. We have another fantastic show for you this week. I have some labels that are near and dear to my heart, including the Criterion Collection, Vinegar Syndrome. I'm even talking about one of my favorite TV shows from recent times. Really excited to dig into all of these great titles. As always, I'll try to give these as broad of an overview as possible while still giving you everything you need to know. If you want a little bit more of a deep dive, I'll be doing written reviews of most of these titles on GeekVibesNation.com within like a week or so of this video being published, so check those out. But for now, I'm just going to dig right in with one of the titles I was most excited about closing out the year from the Criterion Collection. It is the 4K release of David Byrne's American Utopia, directed by Spike Lee. This takes David Byrne's acclaimed Broadway show, concert performance, and brings it to your living room. It was originally touring around as a concert before it made it to Broadway. And I actually saw that in person in Nashville, and I really loved the show. But I never thought I'd be able to see it again until this performance got captured from Broadway. And I actually watched this movie for the first time, I think in August on HBO, because I'd been curious about it, but I didn't imagine it would come to physical media. And then lo and behold, right after I watched it on streaming, they announced this Criterion release. But I was more than happy to revisit this one because it's one of my favorite viewing experiences of this year so far. I love the talking heads and David Byrne and just what he does within this concert film. It is mostly just him playing a lot of his like biggest talking heads hits and solo hits and stuff he did with St. Vincent and everything. But there also is kind of a thematic like through line throughout the show that you can kind of follow along with as well. And there's a lot of interesting things that they do on a production level that I find very fascinating. And a lot of the thematic content, I think, is probably what convinced Spike Lee to come on as a director and made him want to dig into that, especially some of the stuff near the end, so with some like kind of the political kind of call to actions and stuff like that. It's a very powerful show, lots of great songs, like Psycho Killer, Burning Down the House, a lot of your favorite Talking Head songs. But then there are some kind of more deeper cuts that may be new to you, but just the way they're performed, there are no instruments on stage. There are just people walking around, like his band. Everyone is free-flowing. Everyone has their instruments on them, and the dancers are following around everywhere. So everyone's free moving throughout this space, and just the way it creates a really kinetic environment, it's so thrilling. And just seeing their choreography and how all of it kind of interacts with the lights and production, it's just a really, really fantastic concert performance. So if you're a fan of David Byrne in the slightest and you haven't seen this, you are really missing out. Really great film. Glad it got a physical release. Happy to add it to my collection. This 4K release is an SDR presentation of a 4K file. So no high dynamic range, but it looks really great with no compression artifacts or anything like that. DTS 5.1 sound. Slightly surprised not to have a Dolby Atmos track, but the DTS 5.1 does sound pretty great. And then on the Blu-ray disc, there are a couple special features, including like a 53-minute documentary at the making of. There's David Byrne, there's the like choreographer, the lighting designer, one of the dancers, just a lot of great interview subjects there. And then there's a second interview with David Byrne and Spike Lee that's about 14 minutes long. Really great conversation there. And then there's like a trailer. So really well-rounded release of David Byrne's American Utopia. Stealthily one of my favorite Criterion releases of the year just because of how much I love this show. And just a really great way to close out a really great year from the Criterion Collection. Make sure to check this out if you're a fan of David Byrne. Definitely worth checking out. Also from the Criterion Collection, released this past month in November, is the 4K release of Howard Hughes' Hell's Angels, kind of a notorious feature that like years and years of production went into this. It was evolved from a silent film into a talkie. You got Jean Harlow here, Ben Lyon and James Hall, and really kind of took shape, took on more of like a talking narrative, and just kind of went from more of a way to kind of showcase these aerial dogfights and crazy effect like stunt work, and tried to incorporate more of a story over the years. And things were kind of disastrous at points. You can, if you want to like hear a more dramatized version of this, you can check out Martin Scorsese's film The Aviator, which dramatizes some of the behind the scenes drama of this one. But to actually see the real film, pick up Hell's Angels, kind of a World War One tale. Two brothers who fall in love with the same woman. They kind of have very different demeanors, but they are both going to war. Jean Harlow plays the love interest, who is kind of a wild child. There's pre-code drama within this where things get a little bit very surprisingly kind of risque for a movie at this time, but that's the joy of pre-code cinema. And then really interesting aerial footage in terms of kind of the fights and battles and stuff. Some very dramatic moments with some of the fighting, including like showing how certain warriors like sacrifice themselves for their country, and how that is dramatized. It's very chilling how it is caught. And it's not a perfect movie. It is kind of a messy movie, but I do think it's quite an interesting artifact from this time. And it is pretty entertaining as a film. Lots of, they're mostly black and white. There are some color sequences sprinkled throughout as well. Very ambitious movie, a little bit ahead of its time, but for what Howard Hughes was wanting to attempt at the time, I think it turned out pretty well, despite like knowing all the like behind the scenes mishaps. Stunt people died. It's a very crazy production history, but the movie itself, while not perfect, is very entertaining. 4K release from the Criterion Collection. It's been given a 4K restoration for the Roadshow version, the 35 millimeter duplicate negative. This, similarly to the movie, it's not a perfect transfer, in that the elements that they were working with still had some kind of baked in deficiencies, with like subtle damage here and there, and like a little bit of just inconsistency. But that's not really a issue with the transfer. That's just with how the elements that they are surviving worked out. But it is still a really nice looking transfer. This is one of the oldest films to receive a 4K release. So you just have to be kind of, just have your expectations in check for how good this can look. It does look really good. It's just not a flawless presentation. In SDR, and has a couple of interviews and outtakes and stuff. So nice assemblage of supplemental features. But overall, if you're interested in the work of Howard Hughes, this is a big release and like touch point for his career. And if you're a Jean Harlow fan, definitely check it out. It's a really early role for her, and just to see what she's doing in this movie is very fascinating. It may not be as good as something like Wings that won the Academy Award a few years prior to this, but still very interesting movie. So Hell's Angels, check it out if you're interested in it at all. Good wartime tale that's as fascinating off screen as it is on. Next up was a release that from the Criterion Collection that I was thrilled about, because it signaled that they were reviving a previously dormant line that was full of gems, and that is the Eclipse series. And their first step back into the Eclipse series was the Abbas Kiarostami early short films and features. This features 17 either feature length or short films I'll just kind of read off a few of these, including Experience, The Traveler, A Wedding Suit, First Case, Second Case, Fellow Citizen, First Graders, Homework. There's even more, including Bread and Alley. That one's really fun. Starts off the set like a boy trying to get past a dog and just trying to figure out how he's going to get safely past a dog. It's very cute. Toothache, Orderly and Disorderly, Two Solutions for One Problem. What's very notable about this series is that this was the early part of Kiarostami's career. He was working at a institution that really catered towards children and kind of trying to create programming that would kind of enrich their life. There's not really any kind of design behind here. So it's technically kids programming, but not as we really know it. It really kind of they're interesting films, but a lot of them were kind of created to kind of guide and teach their kind of like morals and outlooks on life. Like Two Solutions, One Problem, for example, is like a film that shows like two friends, one of which he returns a book to his friend that he has ripped. And then it first shows like if he doesn't say anything about the tear, how his friend reacts by tearing one of his books, and they just start like kind of like breaking each other's stuff, and how it ends up with just like no one like really happy. And then it kind of goes back and saying like, here's another way this could go, in which a friend returns a book. The friend, instead of going and just instantly wrecking his other friend's book, goes, confronts him, say, hey, my book ripped, and his friend tries to help him repair it with some glue, and then everyone's happy and stuff. Like it builds their friendship. So it's just kind of things like that. It's not always so like black and white morality. There's some really interesting tales like The Traveler, in which a kid, it's a feature length film that's about 70 minutes long almost, or just a little over an hour, in which a kid is just like trying to like, he's kind of shirking all of his responsibilities at school because he's so interested to go to this sporting match outside of town, and him trying to raise money for it and all the stuff he has to do to try to get to this match, and how there's like an ironic twist at the end once he does get to Tehran, and what happens there is very interesting. But there's a lot of these tales from Kiarostami, who he's really has a keen sense of humanity and kind of what is really kind of the tenets of like the human experience, and he kind of translates that in a way that is digestible to a younger audience. But for someone like me, who's in my 30s, I can also watch it and just enjoy it as an interesting and like well constructed piece of cinema, and just knowing how his work would evolve. And I've seen some of his later work. You can see all those building blocks here in these early works, and whether they are the shortest of the short films, like 3 or 4 minutes long, or these features in here, all of them are really fascinating to one degree or another. And I think it's a really valuable look at an Iranian filmmaker, Iranian legend, who cinema wouldn't be the same without him. So that's what I really love about the Eclipse line, because the Criterion collection, they haven't really like dove into a lot of kind of these deep cut kind of materials, especially from international or like silent era cinema, as much in recent years like they were in their Eclipse days. But the Eclipse series used to be DVD only. So when they revived it this past month in November, with it came the announcement that from now on the Eclipse series would be Blu-ray releases, for someone like me who wants kind of the best video quality as well as kind of the hidden gems of things. It's the best of both worlds, where we're finally getting some of these deep cuts in HD on Blu-ray, and that line is going to continue. They've already announced future volumes as well. well, including like some Lubitsch early musicals that are coming out, I think in February. So love that they're continuing this line, and they put a lot of care into this. These all got 2K restorations from MK2. All of them look really great. There are some shorts you can tell that the elements weren't as pristine as others. There are still some like lingering nicks and scratches, or maybe some lines in different short films. But on the whole, I'm not going to go through every single one of the 17 items in this, but on the whole, everything looks really, really good. Encoding is good. As you saw, there are 3 discs here. No major special features, just the booklet that accompanies it. But a 3 disc for this footage, where nothing's overly compressed. Everything holds up pretty well. Nothing seems to be totally out of whack with like color grading or gamma levels or anything like that. Everything seems to be put together pretty well. So for this first foray back into the Eclipse line, which I also have to note that the Criterion releases rarely come with slipcovers, so you do get a slipcover with these Eclipse releases. This is a great step back into that, and I'm so excited to see what else they have from the line moving forward. I love all their releases, be it like their mainstream releases like what I was just talking about, or their Eclipse releases. I love the Criterion collection, but this is a really good release, and make sure to check out kind of these lower profile titles and support this line, because it's a really great kind of treasure trove for cinephiles. And I love this release, and I think you will too if you're a real like international cinephile and you're interested in all like learning about new cinema. Make sure to check this one out. It's really good, and you can even kind of expose younger audiences. There's nothing like too objectionable in most of these, so it might be a way to kind of get younger audiences into international cinema, as most of these deal with kids, so they may be able to kind of connect on that in a more general level for those who can read subtitles and everything. So that might be another benefit to this series. So the Abbas Kiarostami early shorts and feature films, definitely 5-star release in my opinion, and well worth checking out. And my final Criterion release, before I move on to my next slate of titles, is the 4K release of Powell and Pressburger's I Know Where I'm Going. This is a romantic tale that if you're happen to be kind of like a Hallmark or a Lifetime Christmas movie fan, you may recognize the general kind of conceit of this. It's kind of like the originator of a lot of those plots, in which there's a woman who's kind of a workaholic. She's very much trying to make the most out of her life. She's very practical. At the beginning of this, she has decided she is going to marry this kind of older rich man who she may not love, but definitely can give her security. And her father is very kind of suspicious of this and doesn't really want her to do this, but she's going off to marry him off the Scottish Isles, but once she arrives, there happens to be a storm brewing, and she's not able to get exactly to the place she's supposed to be, so she has to kind of hang out with some of the locals there. And while she starts to immerse herself in that kind of community, she soon starts to garner new feelings towards like one of the men there and kind of the community at large, and just tries to put her perspective more in line with like what makes her actually happy compared to what her plan is and what she thinks would make her happy, that kind of situation. But this one's a classic. It's Powell and Pressburger, so you know there's a great deal of intentionality to the characters and how they're feeling, and they're written very well. Grand sweeping gestures, and just some comedic moments, some dramatic moments, romantic moments. This movie has a little bit of everything. It's very, very good. And if you're a Powell and Pressburger fan, I don't see you being disappointed in the slightest. Great romantic movie and great presentation for Criterion Collections. My first time seeing this, but that is from a new 4K restoration of the original camera negative. It has been supervised by, I believe it was Pressburger's widow, or Michael Powell's widow, Thelma Schoonmaker, who people may know best as Martin Scorsese's longtime editor, I won't go into everything, but his widow, Thelma, the icon, kind of supervised a lot on this release, and you also got Scorsese talking on this release and some of the special features as well. So there's a lot of care into making sure this was as accurate as possible. This was a restoration by the BFI in SDR. Everything looks really good. The mono has been restored. You get a commentary track, you get a behind the scenes piece, you get documentaries, a lot of stuff going on here. Great home movies from Thelma's archives with her husband around the time of the making of this. Just a really well-rounded release of I Know Where I'm Going from a Criterion collection. Another great restoration of Powell Pressburger joint, so make sure to check that out if you're a fan of that duo. This one has been treated very well from a Criterion collection. Now is where I start my immense journey into the Vinegar Syndrome and Vinegar Syndrome partner label titles. Pretty much everything that I'm going to be talking about from now on is from them, except for my very final release, which I'll get into in a little bit. But my first couple of releases are from their Black Friday slate. So one that I was really excited about was the Vinegar Syndrome release of Nacho Vigalando's Timecrimes. This is it's one of their more current movies that Vinegar Syndrome has released. They don't usually release much into the 2000s, but I'm glad that they made an exception here. It's a really cool time travel tale about a guy. I won't spoil too much, but it's just about a guy who gets caught up in kind of a time loop thing where he has to keep kind of going back in time to try to stop or correct a crime that happens, and just kind of the layers that kind of stack upon that. It's great Spanish movie, really creative use of time travel, and just while it may not all align exactly with like the rules of time travel, I think the kind of thematic things that Vigalondo is trying to go for on this release or in this film, it works out really well. And I think there's some very I've heard people kind of bat around kind of different ideas of like what the movie is about in terms of like maybe like confronting infidelity and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot to unpack here if you're really into time travel, and whether you can view it on a surface level, but then there's also, I think, some meaning behind it if you really are looking to dig more into it. I'm glad this got a 4K release. I don't even think it had a domestic Blu-ray release. I think it had recently gotten an international Blu-ray release, but now Vinegar Syndrome has upped the ante with a 4K release from a restoration of the 35mm digital intermediate negative in Dolby Vision. This one looks really good, very low budget production, but shot on film and looks really good. All the film grain has resolved well. Not the most colorful film, but it does look really nice in terms of the like foliage of the forest that are a big part of the movie. Deep black levels. There's a very important like red outfit that is on display in the movie. And also like a pink mask. So all of these kind of hues are treated very well. Even like if the movie itself is not always just like exploding with color, when it needs to, it definitely shows off. And there is both the original Spanish and an English language dub track for those who are interested. And then you also get some special features. You get 3 commentary tracks, 2 of which are new. One is archival. You get some interviews. You get a video essay. Really stacked release for a gem of a title from Vinegar Syndrome, Timecrimes. Worth checking out if you're a time travel thriller fan. It definitely does the trick. Another one from Vinegar Syndrome is the latest in a series of upgrades of Dario Argento titles. This latest one is the Stendhal Syndrome, in which he recruits his daughter, Asia Argento. as his lead, as she plays a detective who has a condition called the Stendhal Syndrome, in which she kind of gets overwhelmed by the beauty of certain works of art and causes her to faint. This all comes in conjunction at a time where she's kind of investigating a serial rapist and stuff. And so I have to offer a big trigger warning for like sexual assault within this movie. There's quite a bit of discussion and depiction of sexual assault in this, more than I was anticipating even. So that kind of soured my personal viewing experience. I have kind of a limit to how much of that I can watch. But overall, I do think Argento is still working in a level on this movie that I think he's still kind of like in the pocket. There came probably like a movie or two after this is when he really, I think, started to kind of fall off quality wise. But in general, the Stendhal Syndrome, it is well constructed, well acted. I think there's some really cool set pieces and everything. There are just some kind of more of the grimier aspects that I'm not quite a fan of personally, but I can see where Argento fanatics would really love it. And I do like the movie. There are just things holding me back from like really like digging it hardcore, just in terms of like the sexual assault and all that stuff. But the movie itself, good, and the presentation is really great. I've never owned this before, but this does come from a 4K scan of the 35mm original camera negative. Really, really good looking transfer on this one. Natural film grain, really great use of Dolby Vision in terms of the color reproduction. Deep black levels when you need it, no blown highlights. The colors really pop off the screen when they need to in terms of some of the specific garments that you see. You get both the Italian and English dub version. You get commentary tracks and tons of interviews. So if you're an Argento completist, this is the best way to own the Stendhal Syndrome. Definitely one of his last like really great movies, I would say, in terms of what fans think of his work. But definitely the best release of this out and worth getting if you're a fan of it, for sure. Next up from Vinegar Syndrome, we have a Blu-ray upgrade of a new restoration of Blue City. Here we have Judd Nelson and Ali Sheedy. That's the slip box that you have here. This is the reversible cover underneath that I've already reversed. So this had a Blu-ray release previously from Olive Films. I do not have that release, but I was excited to check this one out. While it's not a perfect movie, I did find it entertaining for what it needed to be. It's very kind of familiar in its plot, in which Judd Nelson plays a kind of a reckless guy who comes back to his hometown, learns that his father has been killed in recent months, and he wants to kind of track down the people who have taken over the town and kind of may be responsible for his dad's death. You get a really big poster in this here. So it's just Judd Nelson just going full vigilante within this town, taking down people that he thinks have wronged his family. You get corrupt cops, you get oversized burly henchmen, you get the Ali Sheedy love interest of like his best friend's younger sister that he never thought of that way, but now she's grown up. You got all kind of the traits of this kind of subgenre. And if you want kind of like those greatest hits, it definitely works. You got David Caruso as his best friend, that like on the other side of the law for once. He's usually playing a cop, but he's playing kind of a screw up in this one. So if you just want kind of like a man coming in to clean up his corrupt town and get vengeance kind of story, this one does it perfectly well. I enjoyed myself. It's not great, but it's fun. So if you're into that kind of story, definitely worth checking out. And very surprised, female director, like in the 80s, you didn't get a lot of like these types of movies directed by women at this time. So that's just like a real fun point that I wanted to shout out. So she did a good job. But this one got a new restoration, a 4K restoration compared to the olive release. So 4K restoration of the original camera negative. Like I said, I've never seen this before, but I do know that this looks pretty spectacular. And if Vinegar Syndrome didn't give this a 4K release now, I'd be very, very surprised if it does get one. But I know some people might be disappointed that it got a 4K restoration, but not a 4K disc. But this Blu-ray release looks very, very nice. No compression issues. Everything looks really nice in terms of no nicks or scratches, nice resolving of the film grain. Everything just looks pretty glorious. So if you're a fan of this film, I think it's worth checking out. And you get new special features, which I believe the previous olive disc did not have. So you get a commentary track, you get interviews, you get video essays, some really nice additions to this for fans, in addition to the audiovisual upgrade. Blue City, make sure to check it out if you're a fan of just kind of like crime cinema or just Judd Nelson, worth checking out. Just a reunion of a couple of members of the Brat Pack, and it's a fun time. Now that may have not gotten a 4K Ultra HD release, but when we head over to Cinematograph, we do have one that I was really excited to get the 4K bump, and that is At Close Range with Sean Penn and Christopher Walken. This was one that I've reviewed this has been released on Blu-ray a couple of times. The latest was from MVD Entertainment, which I reviewed the Blu-ray release of. And I saw even like as recently as last year, Arrow Video released this one on Blu-ray. And at the time I was just like, oh, if they're not releasing it on 4K, when are we ever going to get a 4K release? Because theirs was Blu-ray only. Really thick booklet here, as always with the Cinematograph. Lots of photo reproductions and essays and all kinds of stuff in here. But you can leave it to Cinematograph to come through for us and get a proper 4K restoration. This is a really, really dark but great film in which Sean Penn plays the son of a local like major criminal played by Christopher Walken. He's kind of halfway estranged from his dad, but he's around enough to kind of talk to him and hang out with him every once in a while. But he gets to a point where he starts kind of getting more ingratiated into his crew and like starting to kind of go on like small time crimes with him, and he's wanting to pull his own crimes. But then at the same time, he's falling for a local girl as well. So he's kind of falling in love, and while at the same time kind of getting deeper into this criminal enterprise. But his dad is ruthless enough to, if he feels like he's getting backed into a corner, he's may think that his son, being kind of familiar with his operations, may be of a little bit of a liability. So you have like kind of father versus son. You get bonding, but also mistrust, and just trying to kind of figure out the dynamics between these two, and the ethics and politics within this kind of crime crew. And there's a lot of really great character actors in here, just lots of great performances. Filmed in Tennessee, which is where I'm at, so that's a fun layer for me. But great soundtrack. You get a Madonna song in the credits. There's a lot going for this movie. I think it's very underrated, very heartbreaking in a lot of ways, but just really great stuff. Mary Stuart Masterson, David Strathairn, Chris Penn, a lot of great people in here. Crime classic in my opinion. I'm glad it got a 4K release. While the previous MVD release was good, definitely room for improvement, which this got a new 4K restoration from the original camera negative, presented in Dolby Vision. Looks fantastic from Cinematograph. Just such great detail, so much texture within the film grain, great use of Dolby Vision with some of the rural locations, lots of great kind of like green from the trees and foliage and stuff. Lots of scenes taking place at night, no crushed blacks. Everything holds up very, very well. If you're a fan of this movie, it has never looked better and is well worth this new upgrade. You get the restored stereo track. You get 2 commentary tracks, I believe one of which is new, one's archival. A major thing about this release is you get new interviews with both Christopher Walken and Sean Penn. The Christopher Walken, while it's shorter, it's about like 7 or 8 minutes long. Still some really great stuff in there. The Sean Penn, that one's newer. That's about 19 minutes long. He's smoking the whole time, relaying some really great anecdotes. Very much worth the time. And then there's also even more archival special features. So you get more interviews, a location video. Lots of good stuff on here. If you're a fan of this movie, definitely add this to your collection. If you're a fan of the cinematograph line, which you should be because it's one of my favorites, another really great release from them. And just everything that Justin LaLiberty is doing over with this line, I'm a fan of it. I cannot wait to see what they have in 2026. But if they're with them ending 2025 with this one and my next release, they're crushing it. So At Close Range on 4K, well worth the money. The next one was another major release. I believe it's the first cinematograph release to kind of sell out almost instantly within a few days of being released, and that is New Rose Hotel from Abel Ferrara. I know that Justin is a big Abel fan, and this has been missing in action on Blu-ray domestically. So we finally got a Blu-ray release. Some people I know will be disappointed that this isn't a 4K release, but just having it on Blu-ray is a win, and I think other fans agree, given how fast this initial print sold out with the digibook and everything. You'll probably be able to find a few copies of this version on some retailers like Diabolic and Orbit and stuff. But for most, you'll be needing to wait until the standard edition gets released from Cinematograph, which I assume will probably be pretty soon, given the response to this one. I'm pretty sure they'll want to fast track it. But in terms of this movie, once again, Abel Ferrara, kind of a like sci-fi cyberpunky tale with once again Christopher Walken and then Willem Dafoe. They play partners who are trying to kind of broker a deal internationally with some important people. They recruit once again Dario Argento from Stendhal Syndrome. Lots of cross-pollination on titles this go around. So recruit her. She's kind of a sex worker. Recruit her to kind of get in with some very important people, and all while there kind of becomes like a little friendly rift between the two because they start kind of falling in love with this woman as well. There's a lot of like kind of light sci-fi stuff going on, and it all has that kind of Abel Ferrara gritty sheen that, while I'll admit I know a lot of people are big fans of Abel Ferrara, I'm not the biggest fan. I like some of his stuff, and then other stuff is more of a miss for me. This one was decent, not my favorite. My favorite Abel Ferrara thing I've seen recently is I just recently watched Marty Supreme, in which he was a performer in that. I think he did a great job in that. But in terms of his own movies, I'm a little bit more hit and miss, and this is one that it is imperfect for sure. I think the presence of like Willem Dafoe and Christopher Walken for sure elevate it. I think the narrative is very messy and just it's kind of hard to kind of pin down in a very specific way. And I think Abel very much kind of wanted to follow the source material of this. So I'm not sure if the people probably responded similarly to the original source material. But as a movie, messy but interesting. So if you're interested in anything I've said, I would check out New Rose Hotel just to see how it works for you. And this has been given a 2K restoration, which is another reason it didn't get a 4K release, from the 35mm interpositive. Despite being from interpositive, it looks very nice. A really good Blu-ray release. There's some good textures on here, no major damage, maybe small things here and there that will remind you it may not be from the original camera negative, but it still looks very nice, and it's been restored quite well in conjunction with the supervision of Ferrara. 5.1 restored track as well, sounds really good. You get a commentary track, you get an intro from Ferrara, you get some interviews, you get a video essay. Really nice curated release from Cinematograph for New Rose Hotel. So if you're an Abel Ferrara fan, a fan of Christopher Walken, a fan of Willem Dafoe, a fan of Dario Argento, any of those appeal to you, check out New Rose Hotel. There's a lot of heavy hitters in here, and this release does give it the presentation I think it deserves. So New Rose Hotel, Cinematograph on Blu-ray, check it out. So with that release, I close out my Black Friday titles from Vinegar Syndrome. At the moment, all throughout December, is partners only month at Vinegar Syndrome. So none of the kind of Vinegar Syndrome or other sub-labels like Cinematograph and stuff are able to be purchased on the Vinegar Syndrome website. They're strictly focusing on the partner labels, the OC and distribution partner labels. So you may have a little bit of harder time finding those titles at this exact second. You might have to go to some indie retailers if you're really trying to find something. But if you want partner labels, you're in luck for pretty much the rest of the episode. As usual, if you want a exclusive slipcover, you can get those exclusively at Vinegar Syndrome or specific indie retailers like Diabolic and stuff. Or you can get standard versions, but there's a lot of great titles this month and some new labels, the first of which is a new label, 77, and their release of Bronco Bullfrog. This is the standard release without slipcover. This is a British film about a guy who gets a motorcycle, starts kind of getting lightly into criminal enterprises, starts trying to romance a young girl, and just kind of coming of age, lightly criminal. Like Bronco Bullfrog kind of refers to like this guy that him and his friends know that recently got out of from doing time and for a crime, and just him kind of interacting with him some kind of as a bad influence, getting influence to try to make more of his life through criminal means and everything. But it's really, like I said, a coming of age tale. Lots of bad decisions being made, but hoping things will work out for the best. Very, very British. A lot of Cockney slang in this. So I would probably recommend putting on the subtitles because there's a lot of really thick accents here. But in terms of like kind of British coming of age cinema, I thought this was very interesting. I quite enjoyed it. I probably was drawn more to like the interpersonal relationships, like him and this girl that he was trying to get with, much to her mother's objections. But I found a lot to latch onto, and I was interested in this story. Kind of finished pretty abruptly for my taste, but overall, very fascinating movie, and I'm glad this got a Blu-ray release from 77, which is a label I'm excited to see what else they release in the future, in terms of kind of like deep cut of cinema. This has been given a 2K restoration from the 35mm original camera negative. Looks quite good. Maybe minor things still linger, like specs and stuff here and there, but overall, a very clean looking presentation with the natural film grain still intact. Special features including a commentary track, a podcast episode dedicated to this that you can listen to like a commentary track. You get some documentaries on some key people associated with this movie, including a feature-length documentary, which I think is pretty. It's called In the Company of Joan. That was a 2016 documentary that's about an hour and a half long. You also get some interviews and a Q&A. Really stacked release for this one. I never heard of this before. Probably would have never heard of it if it wasn't for these partner labels. So glad to get my eyes on this one, and worth checking out if you like kind of indie cinema from I believe this was a 69, so 60s independent cinema. Definitely, if that's your bag, check this one out. Another new release is from Bizarro, a new label dealing with Spanish cinema, and their release of A Candle for the Devil. This one was really fascinating. I saw a lot of people were really excited when this one got announced. So this was a little bit more well known. I had not heard of this one before, but this one involves two sisters who run kind of there's no reversible art, but you can kind of see this underneath if you pull it out. Two sisters who kind of run this kind of bed and breakfast type establishment, and one of which is super religious. And I would just say her not approving of certain people's lifestyles really starts to make bodies start kind of piling up in a very surprising way. And just seeing how these two are going about their business, seemingly just like kindly kind of middle-aged ladies who are doing some really heinous stuff along the way. And even though they aren't always on the same page, they kind of have like a codependent relationship amongst each other that always leads to some kind of destruction within the society. Really fascinating movie, really kind of twisted and fun and worth checking out. This one has been given a 4K release, from 4K restoration from the 35 millimeter original camera negative in HDR10. Looks really good. Once again, maybe some minor nicks and stuff still remaining, but it's been cleaned up quite well. HDR10 looks very nice. Not the most like vibrant movie, but in terms of like getting deep black levels, no compression artifacts, all that kind of stuff, this holds up very well. Really good release from Bizarro, or a really good first outing from them. You get both Spanish and English language tracks. You get an appreciation piece and some interviews. This one I believe it had been released on Blu-ray before, but there was room for improvement. So getting this 4K release, I think, will be a big win for fans of this one. It's a really cool piece of Spanish language cinema, and I'm glad to be able to check this one out from Bizarro, another label. So excited to see what they have to put out in the future, but this was an excellent first release from them and well worth checking out. Next up, we have the latest from Glass Eye Pix. We have Satan Hates You on Blu-ray. This one is a really low budget tale in which there's a kind of a serial killer on the loose. There's literal like kind of demonic figures who are kind of like on the outskirts of humanity, trying to coax people to do bad, and kind of like basically they're trying to recruit people to hell by doing bad things, getting them to do bad things and succumb to their evil urges. And that's kind of like the main thing. So seeing if this guy is going to get to are going to give in to all of his worst impulses and kind of give in to the devil, or kind of like as he starts kind of meeting people who are kind of can turn his worldview around, and whether that'll help. You get this icon here from The Hills Have Eyes and The Devil's Rejects in a small part here. I'm sorry, I don't know his name, but he's great. And I really like him in this movie. He's one of my highlights. Little bit too rough around the edges for me. This one for me personally. Even though I did like things about it, I'm just not always. It's not shot on video, but it's closer to that kind of aesthetic, and that doesn't always work for me. But there are still things to like about this. I didn't hate this movie. It's just not my favorite, and I've liked other things from Glass Eye Pix a little bit more. But still a very interesting movie. Glad to have checked it out. And I'll probably give it a chance again in the future, especially considering I like some of the ensemble quite a lot. But yeah, Satan Hates You. This one has been given a new release. It was released in 2010. Originally the movie, and I believe this is its first HD release. It looks really good, considering its very low budget qualities. Everything looks as good, I think, as the material can look. You get a making of documentary, you get a couple of short films, you get a commentary track, some really cool stuff in here. I wanted to mention that the short films are holiday themed. They're Christmas related, like dark Christmas short films. So that's really cool for this time of year. But overall, Glass Eye Pix release is Satan Hate You. Not my favorite release, but if you like what Glass Eye Pix has been putting out, there's a good chance you'll probably like it, especially if you got kind of like really rough around the edge, low budget cinema. Satan Hates You definitely has its charms, even with it not getting my full endorsement. Another one on the similar vein is from Wild Eye Releasing, and their release of Asylum of Darkness. This one I liked a little bit more than Satan Hates You. Probably my favorite Wild Eye Releasing release to date. So this one involves a man who escapes a mental institution and ends up accidentally body swapping with a guy, and it kind of all leads back to some very convoluted kind of rules regarding like body swapping and different supernatural elements at play that I won't get into. One, because I don't want to spoil it, and another because like I didn't always completely understand the logic of what was going on, but I just went with it, and I thought there were some really interesting things. So this one is definitely one for like, it's a win for low budget kind of independent cinema. There's a lot of really cool ideas in here. Some of the acting is a little rough, but I can forgive it for that. Just kind of seeing all these people get together and try to make something cool. This is pretty cool. A little bit over long, at almost 2 hours long, but there's definitely some really interesting ideas in here. Awesome special effects, like practical effects, which I really appreciated. Even with some stuff not completely jiving with me, overall I liked it more than I didn't. So if you're a hardcore horror fan, Asylum of Darkness, while it doesn't always go full tilt into horror, there's a lot of really interesting kind of psychological, supernatural stuff going on that I think you'll dig it. This one has been given a new HD transfer from 35mm Elements. Looks quite nice, or as nice as it can look, I believe. You get 2 commentary tracks, intro, interviews, deleted scenes, short films, packed to the gill with special features. So if you are interested in this one, if special features are your thing, this one has so many of them, and so you should check that out for sure. Next up, we have my first of 2 documentaries that I'm talking about this week. The first is from ETR Media and the release of The House From. So this is a documentary about people who own famous houses and kind of their experiences, like being the people who, like, people are flocking to their house because they have like a strong connection to a film, or they want to act out kind of like their own kind of rituals with it and stuff, and how that impacts the owner of that house, and where some people lean into it, some people are not as cool with it, and just kind of seeing what that actually entails. So you get houses. There's a lot of houses. I won't name them all, but you get stuff from like The Goonies, Breaking Bad, Full House, A Christmas Story, Home Alone. There's a lot of really interesting houses visited, like from Halloween and everything. And just seeing how all these people have reckoned with their place in cinematic history as owning like this major landmark. And it's just, if this sounds like your speed, I think it will deliver everything you want it. Like, I'm a big documentary fan, and just like, I heard the premise of this and I was like, I'm in, and it delivered, and I was really happy about this. The Blu-ray release also gives you a lot of additional material. There's over an hour of additional material. And then you also get deleted scenes. You get, just all kinds of like really cool additional context to this movie that didn't make the final cut. So if that sounds up your alley, get The House From. It's a really cool documentary, and it gives you all everything you want from this subject. Another documentary, going for a band documentary this time. We have Hung Up on a Dream, about the Zombies, the British band The Zombies, who did such chart-topping songs as She's Not There or Time of the Season. Just a really amazing band that the large thrust of this particular documentary is how the music business kind of screwed them over and how that has like impacted their kind of success and how it delayed their like monumental success for many decades, and how their bond has endured over the years. And they all seem like really lovely people, and just hearing what happened to them is just kind of heartbreaking for them, because they're such a talented band, and they're still like around playing as far as I know, at least whenever this was being released. And I remember I used to work at a music venue, and like they were around at that time as well, touring around. So like people are still coming and supporting them, and I love seeing that. But it's just interesting to now get their story told in documentary form. You get to hear from them. You get to hear from some fans and other like famous people, famous musicians and stuff. But the most interesting part is just hearing it directly from the band. So if you like the Zombies or you like music documentaries, Hung Up on a Dream, worth checking out. Really great documentary. Loved every minute of it. Good Blu-ray release from Utopia, and you get some special features, including 2 pretty long Q&A, about almost each are an hour long almost. One of which is moderated by Jason Reitman, and I believe the other is moderated by Julian Casablancas from The Strokes, I believe. So if that sounds interesting to you, good additions to Hung Up on a Dream from Utopia. Next up from Brainstorm Media, we have North Hollywood. This is a narrative similar in kind of tone to the Jonah Hill movie Mid-90s. If you've seen that, this kind of has a similar vibe about kind of a young guy trying to figure out his place in the world, whether he's going to kind of conform to what his father wants for him, or if he's kind of live his own kind of lifestyle, kind of skater lifestyle. And really good cast in here. You got people like Vince Vaughn, Miranda Cosgrove, and then a lot of kind of like non-professional performers as well that gives this an air and authenticity. So if you kind of like that kind of crunchy skater vibe, like hangout movie, coming of age kind of tale, it's not super complicated, but this one does it pretty well. And I enjoyed checking it out. You both get the theatrical and a director's cut version of this in this. You also get a commentary track to kind of flesh things out. So if you like kind of skater culture, North Hollywood, definitely worth checking out. For skate culture enthusiasts or just coming of age fans, North Hollywood, good time. Next up is a release that's kind of hard to describe, but I'll do my best. It is the Reveries Trilogy from Cartuna. It's a trilogy of films that started in 2018 and the latest was in this year, actually. So you have Reveries, Going Deeper, and Reveries, The Mind Prison. And this one is basically the inner monologues of a couple of different characters who have lived some very insane lives. So it's a lot of kind of just ways to hear some really insane stories, like that they're fictional, but they're hilarious. So if you kind of like absurd humor, definitely worth checking out. I learned like a while throughout the process of this that one of the creatives behind this was in a movie that I loved from, I believe, last year. It was put out on Blu-ray, Dad and Stepdad. So one of those people, I believe Anthony Oberbeck, he is one of the comedians in this that are providing the voiceovers. And you also get Matt Barrett, and Graham Mason is the director. So if you just want to hear some like absurd, hilarious stories, this trilogy of movies is like just a dream. I was laughing out loud so many times, and it's really just non sequiturs and absurd humor, but I loved it. I'm glad Cartuna released this one because I had somehow flown under my radar, but this one definitely vibed with me hardcore. Not the most visually complicated movies, very kind of low rent productions and kind of like pastiches of a bunch of different kind of visuals and overlays and everything, but everything looks as good as it possibly can with this Blu-ray release. Everything holds together pretty well, and it looks like, despite there being 3 movies on this disc, they're pretty short. Like the first one is 46 minutes, the next is just an hour long, and then there's like an 80-minute one. So these are hold together pretty well, not overwhelmed with special features, but each film gets a commentary track. And then you also get some short film that inspired this and everything. So you do get special features, and these are just fun titles. So the Reveries Trilogy from Cartuna, good recommendation from me. Heading over to Kimstim, and our first, we're going down a hallway of Asian cinema. We have the Left Behind Daughters trilogy. You also get my first optional slipcover of the partner labels, so you can kind of see just like these really well defined slipcovers, thick, just nice. Except if you like slipcovers, you can get that. This is what the standard version would look like without the slipcover. So you get here, the 3 films are Egg and Stone, The Foolish Bird, and Stonewalling. And while they are not always like directly related to one another, they often share cast members and thematic context, and there are some kind of carryovers. But this is mostly an exercise in very dramatic and intense slow cinema. It's not as like challenging as some slow cinema that I've watched, but you definitely have a lot of just like kind of fixed cameras on like emotional things going on, and you just kind of luxuriate in kind of what is happening on screen. And so the basic thing, like the Left Behind Daughters, like this is set in China, and it's really commenting on the fact of like parents who have left their daughter behind with like family members who have gone to the cities to work, and how that impacts the children that have been left behind, and how they get abused or they get neglected in certain ways, and just how they are trying to come of age in a time where people don't always have their best interest out for them, or they're just kind of taken for granted, and they're not always given the most ideal upbringing. So very intense thematic content throughout here. And so there's like stuff with like sexual assault and abortions and just neglect. There's a lot of intense subject matter here, so tread lightly if you are kind of sensitive to those topics. But if you can get into it, it's very powerful trilogy. I like the work of Hong Ji and Ryu Osoka. Very interesting. I'm glad I got to discover these. And if you are interested in Chinese dramas, these are some interesting newer ones. You get the first 2 films, Egg and Stone and The Foolish Bird, on one disc. And then the last film is on its own disc. That one's like almost 2.5 hours long. The first films are shorter than that, and they fit pretty comfortably onto one disc. You get trailers for these, but not much else. But just having these films all in one package is a win. So Kimstim, glad that they released this trilogy. I'm glad to discover this filmmaker, and I'm excited for anything they want to put out in the future. Next up, we go over to our first film movement release, and it is I believe a 2016 title. I could be off by a year or so, but that's when it was submitted for the Academy Award for International Feature for Japan, and that is 100 Yen Love. Now, the big thing to point out for this, to give context, is 100 yen in this context is equivalent to like $1 for us. So it involves like kind of a slacker girl who's just kind of floating through life, who gets a job at a 100 yen store. So it's like getting a job at a dollar store and her trying to find some kind of like purpose in life, and then she ends up kind of getting into boxing. So it's like kind of a coming of age tale once again, trying to get out of a kind of your slacker lifestyle, and how she kind of transforms over the course of this movie into someone with purpose, and kind of like gets her stuff together. And it's like part sports movie, part inspirational coming of age movie. Completely my jam. If you've watched this show enough, you know I'm more emotionally driven, and this definitely delivers on that. I'm glad that Film Movement released this one, because I kind of missed this one when it was released originally in the 2010s. But I loved it. Really great release. Nice HD transfer. You get a making of documentary on this one. And yeah, if you like a boxing coming of age movie, 100 yen love, worth checking out. A big release from Film Movement Classics is a double feature from Hideo Gosha, Courtesans and Criminals. So you get Onamasa and Tokyo Bordello. So in these two films, both kind of deal with kind of power dynamics. Onamasa is a sweeping tale, about 2.5 hours long, about kind of a Yakuza criminal who's bringing up kind of a young girl, kind of daughter figure, how she's kind of he's kind of striving to kind of get his power and influence people, and she's growing up and kind of feeling the effects of his kind of tyrannical rule, and how that kind of impacts her. And then Tokyo Bordello involves a young girl getting into kind of like a red light district kind of thing, forming connections with women there, and like learning the ropes and stuff, and trying to figure out her own path in this kind of underworld. Really interesting tales. One thing I want to note, even though I showed it off, my copies of Tokyo Bordello and Onamasa are mislabeled. So like this Tokyo Bordello disc has Onamasa, and the disc 1 with Onamasa has Tokyo Bordello. It's probably widespread. If it happened to mine, it'd be a weird one-off. So just be aware of what you're watching whenever you put in, and just like pay attention to the menu screen so you know what you're about to watch. But both films are represented, so I'm not overly upset that it's mislabeled, because they're both, I can watch both of them, but just be aware. But really bleak but fascinating subject matter in movies. Hideo Gosha is a figure I've talked about many times on this show, just from Film Movement releases. Really great director, and I know especially Onamasa was a title long requested, so getting these two movies new to Blu-ray is great. Onamasa gets a 4K restoration from the original elements, and Tokyo Bordello gets a new HD restoration. You get commentary tracks for each film and video essays for each film. Really nice releases. Everything looks really good. The restorations look pretty great. Not much in the way of like lingering deficiencies. Everything sounds good. I was very pleased with this. They seem to have done a good job with Gosha titles every time they put them out, and this is no different. So check out the Courtesans and Criminals collection, The Underworld of Hideo Gosha. If you have liked his previous films, you'll definitely like these. Stepping away from Asian cinema, but still Film Movement classics, I believe this is their first 4K release. I was shocked. And that is a 4K release of The Dam Busters. This is a movie. It was one of my very earliest physical media reviews back in 2020 when I started. I reviewed this within the context of a 5-film Film Movement Classics release. It's called like Their Finest Hours. It's a really great war films. So whenever they announced that The Dam Busters was coming out, I was like, okay, cool, because OCN's been kind of re-releasing a bunch of the titles that came out from Film Movement Classics before they became a partner label. But what I was shocked to see was this was getting a 4K upgrade. So I was like, okay, they're bringing something new to the table. And I remembered really loving this film when it was first released, and I watched it again, and I still love it. It gives me everything I want pretty much out of an old like war film. Involves a kind of a scientist who's trying to figure out how he can develop a weapon that can help win the war. You get the first half of the movie is science and testing and trying to figure out how to build a bouncing bomb to blow up a dam. And then the second half is actually following through with the mission and stuff. So much like just real fun, cool, good times. There is one major deficiency to this title that I think will, like, I have to warn people so they're just not taken by surprise. In this film, there is a black dog that is a very important part of the movie. He's like the main kind of military man's dog, and people are always like calling it and giving it treats and just like being like, "Oh, you're here, so your owner must be here." This dog's name is a racial slur, and there is mention of this before the movie where like there's some insensitive language in this movie, but they are releasing this movie uncut as it should, because it like, although we do not condone the reflections of the attitudes of the time, we want to like see movies uncut. And this reflected real life because this person did have a dog in real life that had this dog's name. So it wasn't just made up for the movie, but it is a very unfortunate part of the movie to just be hearing like a dog being called this racial slur because it's its name, and you hear it quite a bit throughout the movie. So don't be taken by surprise. Just know that you will be hearing a racial slur within this movie if you happen to pick it up. So be prepared. Other than that, I wish it wasn't here, but the movie itself is pretty great. I cannot take away everything the movie does right. It just has this one thing that's very, very wrong. But I do love the movie, and despite that, and this has been given a 4K restoration in HDR10. Looks really, really good. I'm really happy with how Film Movement Classics did with their first 4K release. The visual effects that had like limitations out on the like how it was originally a release, they still look as shoddy as ever, but it's not looking like it's looking as accurate as it needs to how it originally looked. But I think the visual effects as rendered are charming, and overall I think the movie looks really good and impressive for what it was doing at the time. This is one of the rare Film Movement Classics releases that is stacked with special features. So you get a commentary track, you get making of documentaries, you get historical documentaries. There's that whole extra disc I showed off just full of special features. So Film Movement Classics, if they end up releasing all 5 of their finest hours movies from that set, I actually loved most of them, so I'd be all for it. But this is a really good one to start off with. If they only release one more, I hope it's Ice Cold and Alex. That was a really great movie. But Dam Busters, really, really great title, and glad it got the 4K bump. And that's the end of my Vinegar Syndrome titles. I have one more title I need to finish off with, though. We are going to a major label for Warner Brothers to finish us off, and that is the complete series of Ted Lasso, complete series. The original complete series of Ted Lasso, The Richmond Way, before it got renewed for a 4th season. So you have the original 3 seasons of the Ted Lasso show from Apple TV+. And so you have 3 seasons, which I've talked about the Blu-ray previously, so I won't go too far into it. But new on 4K, about a year or so after the Blu-ray release. I'm glad it sold well enough that they felt that they had enough passion to get this 4K release, because I did want it in 4K. I just never dreamed it would actually happen. And I love that they did this by giving each of these seasons their individual case. So there's no overlapping disc, and like these 3 discs here, still no overlapping disc. You just get a swing case. And it's just such a charming, lovely show from Apple. Hilarious show about a man who was a football coach and gets kind of recruited over to England to be a soccer coach, football over there, and just kind of like his wholesome personality, how it kind of impacts the team and the community and everything, and while he goes through his own kind of situations and stuff. And this show, I think, has gotten a little bit of like blowback in recent years for being like too earnest or like just too like, I don't know, cheesy or whatever, but I love it. Like my wife got me a Christmas sweater of Ted Lasso, which I am wearing for this release. So I still wear it proudly. I'm a Ted Lasso fan. It's just one of those shows that I would put on as a comfort watch, and I was so excited for every new episode that would be released. So, having one of my favorite shows of the 2020s get a 4K upgrade is a good day for me, and I'm glad to get this 4K upgrade. And if you're a fan of the show, you can finally see it as intended in Dolby Vision, DTS 5.1 sound. Looks great. I obviously didn't have time to watch all 34 episodes of the show, but sampling around, especially its Christmas episode because of the time of year. I love watching that, and all the episodes that I looked at, they look really, really nice in Dolby Vision. So super glad to have these. So if you're a fan of Ted Lasso, you can finally watch it on 4K at home. You don't have to rely on Apple TV Plus, and it can now sit proudly on your shelf. And it'll only be a little bit awkward when the show continues and they figure out how they want to release future seasons on physical media. But for now, these 3 seasons of Ted Lasso, I think, hold up pretty great in quality. They look good, they sound good, and no special features, but just a real joy of a show. So Ted Lasso, The Richmond Way on 4K, worth checking out. That's my show. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who tunes in every week. I really appreciate your support. If you're not already, please make sure you're subscribed to the Geek Vibes Nation YouTube channel so you don't miss an episode. Please comment on the episode and let me know which release that I talked about you're most excited about. Make sure you send this to anyone who you think would be interested in any of these titles. If you have anything you want me to talk about on a future episode, leave that in the comments. Anything and everything you want to do, I appreciate it. I appreciate all of your support. I love doing this for you. I will be back again next week with another fresh episode of titles right before Christmas. But until next time, enjoy these movies.